Hello, and welcome to the Second Call Defense podcast. I'm Dean Reek, and I'm joined by Sean Maloney, firearms attorney and co-founder of Second Call Defense. Hi, Sean.
Hey, Dean. Thanks for having me again.
Sean, on the last podcast, we were talking about how Hollywood gets it wrong on guns all the time, and we're discussing things like, stuffing guns in your pants without a holster, shooting from the hip, fingers on triggers all the time. Unfortunately, people are influenced by what they see in movies and on TV, and so people pick this stuff up. You probably see this in your gun classes, Sean, where you see stuff that you know that they learned it from a movie, and it's just a really bad idea. It can get you in trouble, right?
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, I've seen, while teaching basic pistol classes, for example, people come in with terrible habits, but they're habits they've learned on TV. So it's understandable. And before instruction, I guess for a large percentage of people, that's where most of their knowledge for firearms comes from.
And, in Hollywood, theoretically, they have trainers, gun handlers, people come in, show the stars how to properly use firearms. But you see so much bad gun handling. And I don't know that it's that the trainers are necessarily bad all the time. I just don't think they spend time. I think a lot of the actors, they're told the right way to do it, because sometimes you'll see somebody with their finger where it's supposed to be, outside the trigger guard, up on the slide of a pistol. But then in the next scene, it's on the trigger again. They just don't really train. They're told how to do it right. And it's just a budget thing. They've got to get these productions done. And so the actors are just not trained.
You're absolutely right. They're not trained in basic gun handling and then safety. Anybody that's been trained in basic gun handling and goes to range on occasion, they have the grip down, they have the stance down, and they know the rules for safe gun handling. So I guess that's something that they can overlook or skip past. But with the Rust tragedy, you would hope that's no longer going to be a thing anymore in the movies.
Yeah, The Rust, that's the name of the movie that Alec Baldwin was starring in and produced, and looks like he got off on that charge. But I still remain quite certain that not only did he cock the pistol that he had, but he pulled the trigger. He had to. The FBI looked at that gun and said it would not go off if you didn't pull the trigger. So that's bad gun handling right there.
Absolutely.
And somebody died because of it.
Always keep your finger off the trigger. Always keep the firearm pointed in the safe direction. And I don't care if it's supposed to be a fake gun. They have camera angles where you'd never have to point a gun at anybody like that.
So, Sean, let's pick up where we left off and talk a little more about the stuff Hollywood gets wrong on guns. And the first one up is one-shot instant kill. I've been seeing this in movies since I was a kid. It's in World War II movies. It's in cop shows. It's in action films. It's in thrillers, sci-fi. One-shot instant kill. You shoot somebody, they fall down, they're dead. Just like that. Now, Sean, if you shoot someone in the head, maybe. If you shoot somebody in the spine, okay, the lights just go off. But generally, you're trained to shoot center mass. This is not how bullets work. Bullets don't just flip a switch and make you dead instantly. Bullets, it's a little graphic, sorry, but bullets are made to make you bleed. Bullets make you unconscious through exsanguination. In other words, they hit a blood vessel, they tear up tissue, you bleed to the point where oxygen isn't going to your brain and you pass out. That's how bullets are designed to work. This one-shot instant kill thing, you see it all the time.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't even come close to working that way. And a number of people I've represented over the years, both with Second Call Defense and in private practice as a criminal defense attorney, or cases I've been involved with, it's not uncommon for a bad guy with a gun to come in, point the gun at the person behind the cash register. There was one situation where that happened, and the husband of the woman running the cash register was off to the right, pulled his firearm, shot the bad guy right through the heart. The bad guy chose to run out the door. He ran for a half of a city block before he bled out and died. He could have stayed there and emptied his gun. people that also people get shot in the shoulder and they keep moving and keep going on with life. That's terribly painful. You're not going to move on with life. There's so much stuff that can happen, but you can be incapacitated. But again, it takes blood loss, it takes blood filling up the lungs, it takes some reason that your body can't function anymore and your brain doesn't have the oxygen anymore. So, and there's any number of people that make it to the emergency room and survive gunshots that you can't imagine they did. But it's human body is pretty viable, and it takes some damage to put somebody down and kill them. So it's not going to be one shot, one kill. Be ready for 2, 3, and 4. Be ready to take cover because it just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah, my understanding is most people who are shot survive because of modern medicine. If an emergency vehicle gets to you, you're stabilized, you're taken to the hospital, most of the time you're going to survive unless those shots are placed so well that you die on the scene.
Nationwide, you're going to find that a lot of the reasons why there's less and less gun deaths is because medicine is so good. You're so right. You get the paramedic there, and chances are you're going to live to the hospital.
So here's another one, Sean, and involves hearing protection. This one's kind of personal to me because I didn't know anything about hearing protection when I was young. It wasn't from shooting guns. It was from being in a band. I was a drummer, and nobody had hearing protection. Nobody talked about it, and I have a little bit of tinnitus now because of that. But you see this in movies all the time. No hearing protection, but nobody goes deaf, right? Guns going off all over the place, and nobody's like, what? What did you say? In real life, Sean, guns are very loud, and you're going to have a reaction to that. You're going to be deaf for a little while, and you might have permanent hearing loss.
I know a number of individuals that are Vietnam War veterans and Iraqi War veterans, and they have some tinnitus, and that's from the amount of rounds that they shot without hearing protection. And I've been hunting since I was a very small lad. And we didn't duck hunting and pheasant hunting. We never wore hearing protection. But I can tell you, I've been in closed structures without hearing protection, and the gun went off. It's debilitating. I've been in the woods, and a buddy of mine has shot at a grouse about 12 inches from the side of my head, and when it goes off, it brings it to your knees. It's so debilitating. You have to have hearing protection, and to survive otherwise, like you said, with tinnitus, ruptured eardrums, and to be able to just function when it's that loud in a closed structure, it can't happen that way. And that's another thing that Hollywood seems to ignore. And no hearing protection. I don't, and I'm at fault as a kid hunting. I never wore hearing protection, but I'm lucky. But I have several friends that aren't. And for any of you out there who have shot firearms and your ears are ringing, you know what it's like.
Once, Sean, once and only once, I was at an outdoor range, and for whatever reason, I was shooting a .22. I just forgot to put on my hearing protection, and I went up to the line, shot once, realized my mistake, and .22s have a real high-pitched crack. It hurt. It was like a spear going through my head. That was the only time and the last time I made that mistake because it was painful.
It is, like I said, it can bring you to your knees. It hurts so bad and it's so loud. And then it takes, a half hour, an hour for your hearing to return to normal, if, it ever really does return to normal.
So here's another one. This is a really popular one. You see this all the time. Walls and cars, bulletproof, right? You see people taking cover behind a car door, or you see somebody with their back against a wall in a house. They're not bulletproof, unless you have like block walls in your house, or unless you're in a tank, you're not going to have bulletproof cars or bulletproof walls. One thing about cars, Sean, like the old Model Ts or even some of the muscle cars from the 50s, the metal used to be a lot thicker. I don't think they would stop bullets. But these days, the metal in an ordinary car is not even a millimeter thick. It is very, very thin. That door may look thick, but it's just thin metal on the outside and maybe some sort of extruded plastic for the inside part of it. It's not going to stop a round of ammunition. Bullets are going to go right through that car door and probably go right through the car and through the other car door.
We have to distinguish between cover and concealment. Concealment hides you. A car door will hide you. standing, taking cover behind an engine block of an automobile will work, but confusing concealment and cover are totally different things. And you're right. If you can even find a door made out of steel, drywall is not going to stop a round. It won't slow it down, but it's not going to stop it. So you have to make sure that if you're defending yourself in your own home and you have children and you're in your bedroom, make sure that you know which direction your kids are in. There's a lot to think of because drywall, your door, any number of things are not going to stop a bullet from penetrating and going through the other side. So if you're hiding behind the wall or hiding behind the door, don't for a second be surprised when you get hit, because you're going to get hit.
Yeah, the most homes, it's what's called balloon construction. You know, you have 2x4s, and let's say that you have, I don't know, 1/4-inch plywood on the outside, you know, aluminum siding on top of that. On the inside, you have the drywall, and then some paint, some insulation. Bullets are going to go right through that. And you've had instances with second call defense, Sean, right, where gunshots have gone out of one house and into another house.
On 4 occasions. All happened the same way. Someone just got done cleaning their firearm, and for some reason, when they're in the process of putting it in their safe or lockbox, their fingers on the trigger, there's a negligent discharge, and it doesn't go out their windows. It's going out their house into the next door neighbor's house through the wood. You're exactly right. It goes outside the wall and then enters the other home. Now, fortunately, in all 4 of those occasions, nobody's home. But can you imagine having to wait for your neighbors to get home to apologize for the hole in their kitchen?
Yeah, that is not a good day. Sean, here's another one. This one's kind of funny, but it's a basic lesson, I think, in physics, where you see bullets making people fly backwards through the air. You know, someone gets shot with a shotgun, with a pistol, whatever, and suddenly they're lifted up off the ground, they fly across the room or fly out a window. Basic physics applies here. If you have a 9mm handgun, and you've got, say, a 115 grain bullet, that bullet weighs, and I looked this up, by the way, 0.016 pounds. Now, I don't know how heavy you are, Sean. I'm about 195 pounds. A bullet that weighs 0.016 pounds, no matter how fast it's going, it's not going to lift me off the ground and make me travel across the room, right? The other thing is, if somebody's shooting that, if it has that much force, Newton taught us that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Well, if you're flying across the room, what about the person firing the gun? Why aren't they flying backwards as well?
You're so right. That's one of the funniest things. It just doesn't happen that way. I've seen films as a criminal defense attorney where people are being shot mostly point blank range. You can't even tell they're shot. Unless it hits a vital organ and until they bleed out, you have no idea. People say, well, why'd you shoot so many times? Because the guy didn't stop. He kept coming forward. I think it would probably take a cannonball or a bowling ball to hit someone in the chest and knock them backwards. I can't imagine. I mean, bullets penetrate. Even when a bullet hits a bulletproof vest, the vest is absorbing the energy, it's taking the energy, it's hurting, but you never see anybody flying backwards or really even taking a step backwards. But you're so right. But again, I guess that's good drama, but it's just not going to happen that way. So folks, if you're defending yourself and you think one shot's going to do it, it's not going to do it. You need to stop. You need to shoot until the threat stops. And I don't know what's going to stop that threat. It may take enough time to bleed out, or certainly a ocular cavity shot between the eyes or something like that could do it. But in all reality, in a self-defense shooting, it's not going to be one shot and it's over with.
Sean, how about bad guys with hopelessly inaccurate aim? I was watching a movie the other night, and there was somebody running down a very narrow hallway, and there were 2 or 3 bad guys shooting at this person, missing and missing and missing and missing. The good guy gets to the end of the hallway, turns around, bang, 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 shoots the good guys, has amazing aim, right? It's almost impossible to miss somebody in a hallway when you're shooting. Even if you're not trained at all, you're probably going to hit something. The bad guys just aren't going to have that bad of aim. And most self-defense situations happen up really close,
You're right.
within arm's distance. So, don't expect bad guys to have aim that's that bad, maybe if they're across the street, but not if they're right on top of you.
Normally, bad guys, because they have the jump and they're intending to shoot right from the beginning, and they're offensive, not defensive, they're more accurate. And certainly running down the hallway, where if you just keep it in between the walls, you're going to hit something. But there's been cases where, like you said, arm's length, bad guys or good guys are missing just alike. But it just doesn't happen that way. When you're putting that much lead down range, somebody's going to get hit. But again, I guess that makes for good theater. And certainly I guess Hollywood's overlooking the psychological and physical aspects of a threatening encounter with the adrenaline dump, with the running and your heart beating. And heck, you can't even hold your arms still on a normal day if you're done running and with all that adrenaline going on, let alone being able to hit accurately like that when you turn around.
How about this thing that you see with guns going off when they're dropped? And this is not just in movies and TV shows, Sean. We see this in articles where it will report on, somebody claims that they dropped a firearm and it went off, and they were very startled that it went off. And we know for a fact that that is not what happened, right?
One of my favorite movies, a MAC-10 is flipping down the stairs in an Uzi, and every revolution, it's shooting automatic fire. And that just can't happen. I've been around people that have dropped guns, guns have fallen out when they're carrying them, and they don't do that. They just don't go off like that. And even when they try to drop your gun, and so they try to drop the gun and then shoot the bad guy with it. Guns, at least in the last half of the century, certainly probably three-quarters of the century, are designed where that doesn't happen anymore. Maybe in 1940s and 1950s, they didn't have drop safeties, but there's not a firearm that's been made probably since past 1960 that's going to go off when you drop it.
When you see these articles in the newspaper that said somebody dropped a gun and it went off, here's how you should read it. I had my finger on the trigger, it went off, then I dropped it because I was so startled. So they might believe that it went off when they dropped it, but that is not the way it happened. They're just embarrassed, or they just perceived it incorrectly and they're not remembering.
Dean, I can tell you a case I had. I got a phone call. The police were coming because the gentleman was unholstering his firearm from a day of work, and it just went off. I said, "How did it go off?" He said, "I dropped it and it went off." And I said, "You're lying to me. What kind of gun was it?" He said, "A Glock 26. I said, "You're lying to me. Where'd it go?" He said, "It hit right beside the light switch." I said, "You deholstered your gun and you thought it was empty. You thought you didn't have one in the chamber, and you decided to dry fire at the light switch, didn't you?" There was silence for 5 seconds, and then he admitted it and said yes. So guns don't go off. If someone telling you dropped it and went off, your BS meter should go off immediately because they just don't want to tell you the truth.
And here's another one, Sean, and you see this quite a bit in movies. Fountains of blood when you're shot, right? The bullet hits somebody, and all of a sudden the blood is just spurting all over the place. Now, the way they do that in movies is they have something called a blood squib, or if they want a lot of blood, they'll have like a little tube in there with colored, like corn syrup or something like that, that's squirting out. That doesn't happen. Even if you hit an artery, it takes time for the blood to start coming out. You're not just like a balloon filled with blood and you hit it and it explodes outward. As you've said a couple times, you can't always tell when you hit somebody.
No, and very rarely is there especially with hollow point ammunition, 9mm or something like that, is there going to be a wound where it's going to create a wound channel and go all the way through the body. A rifle, sure, that's going to happen, but I've seen countless numbers of autopsy photos. I've been at crime scenes when there's basically no blood. You can see it looks like a pencil hole in a chest cavity, and there's no blood anywhere. There may be some bruising, but very seldom, unless, of course, if you hit an artery in the arm or a leg, or certainly the neck, that's going to happen. But in the vast majority of cases, there's very little to no blood.
Well, here's the last one, Sean, and this one's a little technical, but you see people hugging a wall when they're clearing a structure or sneaking around. They've got their back up to the wall. They come up to a door or a corner, and then all of a sudden they jump out into the open to see if there's, a bad guy there. That is absolutely the wrong way to do it. and I can't tell you the right way to do it on this podcast, but I've had training, and I can tell you where you need to go to figure out the right way to do this. Tactical Defense Institute
Right.
in Lower Ohio. This is something that's really hard to understand unless you actually go through the training, but you do not hug a wall when you're trying to clear a structure or sneak around, because what you're going to end up doing is exposing your gun before you can see anything, or your head's going to be exposed before you can see anything. There's a right way to do it, and they never do it right in the movies. Never.
Never at all. And whether you're going to use the pie technique of pieing a door frame or dipping in and out of a door frame like TDI trains, the last thing you want to do is jump in front of a door, because guess what? If the bad guy's standing there, he already has the gun up to his shoulder or extended and is just waiting for somebody to walk in front of the door. So I guess that'd be one of the quickest ways to get killed if you wanted to do that. But you're so right. There's various different techniques used to clear a room, to clear your house. And with the armed teachers we have through faster training, there's a whole new way to carry your gun going down the hall full of children. But certainly hugging a wall and then stepping out in the door frame to take a peek isn't the way to do it.
Well, Sean, I think we've covered quite a few of these misconceptions and mistakes and everything that we see in movies and TV shows. This has been kind of fun.
It has been. And there's so many more out there. I could send you to different movies and different films to watch it, but try not to ruin the movie for everybody else around you, but silently sit and watch what's going on with firearms in the movies. Because if you have any kind of training or understand gun safety, you're going to see mistake after mistake. And do what I do. Every time someone starts pressing the trigger, start counting. And then look at your wife or your husband and say, he just shot 17 times and never reloaded. And it was a revolver.
Yeah. Well, Sean, that's it for now. If you're not a member of Second Call Defense, go to secondcalldefense.org and sign up for complete self-defense legal protection. We'll see you next time on the Second Call Defense podcast. Be safe.